Hey guys, thanks for watching. Thanks for listening. This is your host Thomas Tyree from On the Hot Podcast. Today, I have some bonus content for you guys. The bonus content we'll be covering today will be in the sport of football inside the NFL world. In today's bonus segment, I'll be sharing my thoughts on which NFL players are on a make it or break it season heading into this upcoming NFL season. So, there's a lot of players that I could sit here and name all day, but I do have 5 players on my list today that are heading into a make it or break it season this upcoming NFL season. Starting off with player number 1. Player number 1 on my list is Deshaun Watson, quarterback for the Cleveland Browns. Now, Deshaun Watson is on my list for a make it or break it season this year due to the fact that Deshaun Watson, since being traded to the Cleveland Browns, has yet to prove that he's worth $230 million since he got that massive deal with the Cleveland Browns a few years ago. And he hasn't been the same quarterback or the same player, not even close to the same player that he was with the Houston Texans years ago in the National Football League. That version of Deshaun Watson, a lot of people considered for him to be a top 8, top 5 player at his respective position. But he's missed a lot of time since being with the Browns due to injuries and due to being suspended. And looking at his numbers, he has not been the best. When he's on the field with the Cleveland Browns, he has a touchdown-interception ratio of 14 touchdowns, 9 interceptions, a passer rating of 81.7, and is averaging under 200 yards passing per game when he's on the field with the Cleveland Browns. That is not worth $230 million. He's not the same player that he used to be. He's got to prove something to this organization. And not only that, when he went down with the season-ending injury, when running back Nick Chubb went down with the season-ending injury, it took veteran quarterback Joe Flacco, who was sitting on the couch for a majority of the 2023 season, to save and revive this Cleveland Browns offense, revive this Cleveland Browns team, and help them get to the playoffs last year. You got that from an aging a veteran quarterback of Joe Flacco. You got more out of him than what you got this whole entire time with Deshaun Watson since you traded and signed that massive contract for him for. I'm just saying. But it is what it is. If Deshaun Watson doesn't prove that he is that guy or can get back to that level of play that we saw years ago with the Houston Texans, I think the Browns are going to find a way to cut ties with him very soon in the near future. Mark my words. Deshaun Watson's number 1 on my list. Now, player number 2 on my list is Aaron Rodgers, quarterback for the New York Jets. Now, I understand that Aaron Rodgers, in his first and only 4 plays with the New York Jets, tore his Achilles last season in that Monday night opener against the Buffalo Bills. That was horrible to watch. And I feel bad for him, but the expectations got to be high for Aaron Rodgers. He's still, when healthy, plays at his best, still one of the best at his position. And I feel like his expectations have to be high because he wanted out of Green Bay. He wanted to leave the Packers organization to have a true legitimate chance to contend for a Super Bowl title. Well, now you can do this with this New York Jets roster. And they got a solid offense still. They still got Breece Hall running back. They still got Garrett Wilson at wide receiver. Their defense is pretty solid, pretty loaded with a lot of talented players. Sauce Gardner at the quarterback position. But it's do or die for Aaron Rodgers in New York because time is ticking. You should have more than 1 Super Bowl in Aaron Rodgers' career. I have said time in and time out on this podcast that Aaron Rodgers is a top 5 quarterback all time in the National Football League. The way he's played this position, the way how he makes how he throws the football and his football IQ, I've said several times he's top 5 all time. And he should have more than 1 Super Bowl because he's got 4 MVPs to show why he's a valid guy and worthy of a top 5 selection all the time. But the fact that if he doesn't get the Jets somewhere to the playoffs, somewhere that they haven't been to since 2010. The last time they were there was when the Jets played the Pittsburgh Steelers in the 2010 AFC Championship. That was the last time the Jets have been to the playoffs, and that's been a total of 13 seasons. So Aaron Rodgers definitely has to show me something this year. He has to at least, if they're not going to win the AFC East, at least get to the Jets into the playoffs. He's got to show me something. And if not, I think the Jets can move off of him or he could possibly take the easy way out and retire after this upcoming NFL season. Aaron Rodgers has a lot riding on his shoulders. He's number 2 on my list. Now, number 3 on my list is Stefon Diggs. Now, for someone as elite of a wide receiver as Stefon Diggs is, I've asked myself this question several times in the NFL offseason. Why did the Minnesota Vikings decide to trade him years ago? Why did the Buffalo Bills just decide to trade him this NFL offseason? If he's this elite wide receiver, when he's at his best, you get a top 5, possibly a top 5 wide receiver production in the National Football League. Why did these teams bail on him? Is there something that we don't know behind the scenes about Stefon Diggs? Because he's one hell of a player. But Stefon Diggs, this offseason, got traded to a Houston Texans team that was booming last year. CJ Stroud and company turned this whole organization, did a whole 180 with this organization. And he's going to a spot that realistically doesn't really need him. He's going to give them the boost that they need, but realistically, offensively, they really don't need him because the offensive production, the pass catches, what they did last year with Tank Dell, Nico Collins at wide receiver, Dalton Schultz at tight end. Business was booming without Stefon Diggs there last season, and CJ Stroud has a connection with these other pass catchers in the Houston Texans offense. We're going to see if Stefon Diggs can still be that elite guy that he once was in Buffalo and in Minnesota. We're going to see how much Stefon Diggs doesn't complain when the ball doesn't get thrown his way, like he did when him and Josh Allen got into arguments on the sidelines over the years in Buffalo. We're going to see what Stefon Diggs truly brings to the table in Houston. I want to see leadership. I want to see Stefon Diggs being a good teammate and not overreacting when the ball isn't coming his way. And I want to see him still be a productive wide receiver when the ball is thrown his way, when he has the ball in his hands like he was with the Buffalo Bills, with the Vikings. So I have to put Stefon Diggs on this list because if he's not going to prove he's a number 1 wide receiver, will he ever be a number 1 wide receiver again in the National Football League? He's a player on my list. Now, next player on my list is Bryce Young. Is it fair to put Bryce Young on this list? No, but I have to put him on this list because him being the former first overall pick in the 2023 NFL Draft, he was drafted number 1 overall. And when you're drafted number 1 overall in the NFL, it means something. And the expectations for you are automatically sky high of what you're going to do in your NFL career. And it's hard for rookies to hang around in the league nowadays because the expectations are so high on you. But Bryce Young has no choice but to show the Panthers that they did make the right selection when they drafted him over CJ Stroud with the number 1 overall pick in 2023 last year. He has to prove why that he could be there for the Panthers through the good days and the bad days. Right now they're going through bad days, rebuilding. They don't even have a number 1 wide receiver. Hell, they're the only NFC team in the NFC conference without a true number 1 wide receiver right now. And he has to prove that he can at least do something more productive than what he did in his rookie season because the stats weren't there. The win-loss column was not there. And he didn't have much to work with, but damn it, being the first overall pick in the 2023 NFL Draft, I got to see more than that. I got to see way more production than that. And the Panthers got to see the reason why they actually drafted Bryce Young in this position. Because if he can't get you through the bad days or show you something through the bad days, how can he shine through the good days when the rebuild is finally over in Carolina? Just got to call a spade and call it what it is. Hopefully, they prove that Bryce Young can prove that he is the guy for the Panthers. I mean, the NFC South, realistically, is going to be, once again, the worst division in football this year. So hopefully, he could show me something and prove that he could be the guy in Carolina. Because they drafted him for a reason and gave up a lot of stock to get him. So he's got to show us something this year. Player number 5, I know I said 5 for you guys. Off the top of my head, I'm going to say Daniel Jones, quarterback for the New York Giants. I feel like Daniel Jones has to prove that he's going to be a legit quarterback once again for this New York Giants team and Brian Daboll's offense. You see what the first year they did together, him and Brian Daboll did with that New York Giants team. They went to the playoffs, upset the Minnesota Vikings on the road, and went all the way to the divisional round Brian Daboll's first year in New York. what they did last year, they retreated back. Even though Daniel Jones did tear his ACL, he did not look the same and he did not play well. He was once again a turnover machine, something that Brian Daboll did halt and did put a stop to. Daniel Jones wasn't turning over the ball in Brian Daboll's first year with the organization. Last year, before the torn Achilles, the win-loss column wasn't there. The New York Giants were not a team to look out for. They were a team really to step over and use as a stepping stool to see how good of a football team other teams were or what really works on offense or defense. That's that's what it was for the New York Giants. And the fact that they won more games with Tommy DeVito and Tyrod Taylor last year without Daniel Jones, their franchise quarterback, speaks volumes. And you also got to prove a point if you're Daniel Jones, the fact that the team decided to give you the money instead of giving Saquon Barkley, their best player, the money. And you watch what happened this offseason. Saquon Barkley walked to enemy territory and signed with their biggest rival, the Philadelphia Eagles. So there's a lot for these 5 players to me to prove this year. I'm looking forward to see what Deshaun Watson does, Aaron Rodgers does, Stephon Diggs does, Bryce Young does, and Daniel Jones does this upcoming NFL season. But that is all the time I have for you guys today. Thank you guys for watching. Thank you guys for listening. This is your host, Thomas Tyree, signing off. And I'll see you guys on next week's episode.